The evening was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of our marriage. After years of dedication and endless late nights, my wife had finally received a major promotion at her company. I was proud of her achievements and wanted to celebrate every moment with her. The corporate dinner was held in a luxurious hotel ballroom filled with executives, employees, and their partners. I walked inside wearing my best suit, expecting a beautiful night. But within a few minutes, my excitement disappeared. Across the room, I saw my wife standing beside her boss, Daniel, and something about their closeness immediately made me uncomfortable. At first, I tried to ignore the feeling in my chest. I told myself that Daniel was simply her boss, and professional relationships sometimes looked friendly from the outside. I didn't want to become the suspicious husband who misunderstood harmless conversations. So I smiled, greeted other guests, and acted like everything was normal. But every time I looked back, I noticed something that bothered me. Daniel stood too close, leaned toward her while speaking, and touched her shoulder more casually than I expected. My wife, instead of stepping away, seemed completely comfortable with his attention. I walked toward them, hoping my presence would naturally change the situation. My wife immediately smiled and introduced me to Daniel. "This is my husband," she said proudly. Daniel shook my hand and gave me a confident smile. "You're a lucky man," he said while looking at my wife. The word sounded like a compliment, but something about his expression made me uneasy. I thanked him politely and stayed quiet. I didn't want to create an awkward scene, but deep inside, a strange feeling had already started growing. I had trusted my wife for years, but that night, my instincts were warning me. As the dinner continued, I began noticing small things I had never paid attention to before. My wife kept checking her phone and quickly turned the screen away whenever I came close. Daniel appeared near our table several times, always finding some reason to talk with her. He mentioned company trips, private meetings, and inside jokes that I had never heard about. Each detail felt like another missing piece of the puzzle. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation, but the more I observed, the harder it became to convince myself that everything was normal. Later in the evening, the music started, and guests moved toward the dance floor. I expected my wife to come to me, but instead, Daniel approached her first. They stood near the corner of the room, talking quietly. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see their expressions. My wife looked nervous for a moment, then quickly forced a smile. That reaction hurt more than anything else. We had shared years together, faced problems together, and promised honesty above everything. Yet standing there in that crowded room, I felt like I was watching a stranger instead of the woman I loved. I decided not to confront her in front of everyone. An emotional argument in the middle of a corporate event would only create chaos and embarrassment. I quietly walked outside the ballroom and stood near the balcony. The city lights below looked beautiful, but my mind was filled with confusion. I wondered when things had changed between us. Had I ignored signs because I trusted her too much? Had my focus on work allowed something to happen behind my back? While I stood there trying to understand everything, my phone suddenly vibrated. I looked down and saw a message from an unknown number. The message was short, but it instantly changed the way I saw the entire night. It said, "You need to know the truth about your wife and her boss. Open the attached picture." My hands froze as I opened the image. It showed my wife and Daniel outside the office building several weeks earlier. The picture alone didn't prove anything, but the timing and secrecy made my heart sink. Before I could process it, another message arrived. "This is only the beginning. There is much more you don't know." I slowly looked back through the glass doors and saw my wife laughing with Daniel. At that moment, I realized the dinner was not the problem. It was a first clue of a much bigger secret. I stood there staring at the message, trying to understand who had sent it and why. My first instinct was to call the number, but before I could, another notification appeared. This time, it was a video file. My heart was beating faster as I pressed play. The video showed my wife and Daniel sitting together at a cafe near her office. Their conversation was difficult to hear, but their body language told a story I didn't want to accept. They looked comfortable, almost like two people who had been hiding their closeness for a long time. I felt a painful disappointment because the person I trusted most was now becoming someone I barely recognized. I returned to the ballroom with a calm face, pretending nothing had happened. I didn't want my wife to know that I had received those messages. I needed answers, not anger. I watched her carefully for the rest of the evening. She smiled at everyone, acted completely normal, and even asked me if I was enjoying the dinner. The fact that she could behave so naturally made the situation even harder to accept. I wondered how long she had been hiding things from me. Had our entire marriage been built on a truth I never knew? When we finally left the event, the drive home was painfully quiet. My wife talked about her promotion, her colleagues, and how successful the night had been. I listened without interrupting. Every word sounded different now, because I was carrying information she didn't know I had. I wanted to ask questions, but I stopped myself. I knew that if I confronted her without understanding the full story, she could easily deny everything. I decided to wait, collect the truth, and then make my decision with a clear mind. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to things I had previously ignored. I noticed changes in her routine, unexplained phone calls, and sudden meetings that never existed before. I didn't follow her or invade her privacy, but I observed the distance growing between us. The woman who once shared everything with me now seemed like she was living a separate life. Meanwhile, the unknown person continued sending small pieces of information that slowly revealed a hidden connection between my wife and Daniel. One evening, I received another message. This time, it contained documents showing that Daniel had been helping my wife advance quickly inside the company. At first, I thought it was simply professional support, but then I noticed private messages between them that crossed professional boundaries. The truth hurt, but it also gave me clarity. I finally understood why my wife had been defending Daniel so often, and why she became distant whenever I asked about her work. I wasn't imagining things. Something had been happening behind my back. Instead of confronting my wife immediately, I decided to protect myself first. I focused on my own future and quietly prepared for whatever decision came next. I spoke with a trusted advisor and organized my thoughts. I didn't want revenge or drama. I wanted honesty and respect. After everything I had done to support my wife's dreams, I deserved the truth. The hardest part was accepting that sometimes the person standing beside you can be the same person hiding the biggest secret from you. A week later, I finally sat down with my wife and asked her a simple question. Is there something about Daniel that you haven't told me? Her expression changed instantly. For a few seconds, she said nothing. That silence answered more than words ever could. She tried explaining that things were complicated, that she never meant to hurt me, and that I was misunderstanding the situation. But after seeing the evidence, I knew the truth could no longer be hidden. That night, I learned that trust can take years to build, but only moments to destroy.